Hey, I just finished what was a reading out loud and a definitely a reread for me of The Voyage of the Dawn Treader by C.S. Lewis, one of the Narnia books, which I started reading out loud at home on this channel because I'm reading it to a young woman at work. Um, and as I was reading it to her in work, I thought, oh, this is something actually I could, I have this on my phone. I could read it out loud, on this channel, and it would be a good thing to just sort of get the practice in. And I found, as I was reading it, I did actually get into the book, and I took it in as a story. It wasn't just me reading it out loud. It was me reading it, processing it, having opinions about it. So I thought I'd share those. Um, it's funny because I probably the last time I read this was when I was in my early teens, probably was the last time I read it. And I mostly only remembered the story of Eustace, the really unpleasant, unimaginative, nasty kid who gets dragged along with Lucy and Edmund Pemphis as they get transported through a picture back into Narnia after their great adventures in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And I just remember him being such a nasty kid who ends up getting transformed into a dragon, and how he gets transformed back by Aslan. And I remembered his feud with Reepicheep, the very knight, kind of gallant knight like little mouse, because he's a little mouse, but he's very much, I am a I am a true adventurer, and like I'm here for adventure, and I'm going to the end of the world, and I'll go as far as the Dawn Treader will take me. And when the Dawn Treader can go anymore, I'll get into my little coracle and I'll paddle that. And when the coracle can't take me anymore, I'll paddle with all my four paws. And when my paws can't take me anymore, well, either I'll fall off the end, or whatever will come of me, but I will try, do my best, because that is my ultimate goal. And just like, Reepicheep. Um, but actually, Eustace takes up, Eustace, whose family are a bunch of cranks who are vegetarians and not fiction readers and have raised their son the same way, um, is actually only kind of a very early part of the story. And um, the further story is them joining Prince Caspian, from Horse and His Boy, I believe, and them them voyaging to the end of the world and beyond, to where to track down the seven lords of Narnia that had set off um, before Caspian took the throne, got it taken back from his usurping uncle. I think it's a usurping uncle, and searching them out, and the various islands and the various adventures, kind of periodic adventures they have. And Eustace's kind of transformation into dragon is only just a small part of that. Caspian himself is a bit of a cipher in this story. We get much more of of Eustace. We get Lucy. Don't get that much of Edmund. Edmund is just sort of a side bit in himself. Um, you know, uh, uh, and and but it's mostly this. It's coming to the end of the world in Aslan's country, and it's Aslan's country, as I guess, as a kind of heaven, and it's really written quite beautifully. Reading this out loud, it has this kind of elegiac, very much like J.R. his C.S. Lewis's friends, J.R. Tolkien, and the talking about the distant shores that the elves go to at the end of their things, and that Frodo and Bilbo go off to at the end of their taking the ships and going off to there. It's got that kind of a feel to it. And I mean, it is very much more. in C.S. Lewis is kind of is cast as this is a Christian thing. Aslan says there is Aslan's country in your world too. To Lucy, Edmund, and Eustace, he says, I'm there too, and I have a different name, and we isn't mentioned, but it's highly implied what that is. But it's like C.S. Lewis is surprise, surprise, is a really good writer, and despite that, he's obviously got an allegorical kind of Christian message here about that. He also kind of generates a kind of magic in this world, which is probably why these books have stuck around. It is not just bald-faced Aslan is Christ. It's like Aslan is this lion that Lucy can hug, and you can feel its soft fur enfold you. And there's that kind of sensuous comfort. And as they go in closer and closer to the end of the world, everything becomes so bright, but they drink the sweet, sweet water, and it allows them to be in the brightness and it not to overwhelm them. And they feel no hunger or thirst because they've got this sweet, sweet water. It's C.S. Lewis loves describing his food all throughout the book, and it's another part of this kind of sensuous kind of nourishment, and it's a nourishment which is food, is the joy of the food. There's you have the famous thing of the Turkish delight that disappoints so many people when they hear the description in the books, and then they kind of try it in real life, and to a lot of people's taste it's maybe not the thing, but when he describes it in the book, it's like he's describing this food and just how wonderful it is and how nourishing it is, and just like the lists of food, and it's beautiful. But you realize it's like the food is something, is a symbol for something else, for a spiritual, emotional, intellectual kind of nourishment that C.S. Lewis is kind of trying to offer, to kind of conjure up in his readers. So it's funny, I have a lot less of a hard time with the allegory stuff in the book, at least in the Dwn Trdr, where, yeah, it's there, but I can sort of set that aside and say, this is a writer who is actually earning that feel, that sense of wonder in his books. He is creating that through this fantasy world, through his writing. He's creating this sense of wonder in the fantasy world, that just kind of beautiful, elegiac, lovely, light writing, which it's like, wow, that's a lovely thing to discover in an author that I picked up when I was very young, and when I got into my teens and was a little bit more kind of aggressively, I don't believe in God sort of stuff, really rejected. And now I still don't believe in God, but I can, his writing calls to me. His writing calls to me, which is lovely. It's a lovely rediscovery of an author that I thought I had kind of put down and acknowledged in an intellectual way, but I didn't think it was there emotionally. And it's like, he caught me emotionally. I'm really happy about that. So that's my reread review of The Voyage of the Dwn Treader by C.S. Lewis. More videos later.